Hey everybody, I'm just going to give some first impressions on the P10F that I just received. This is the Optics Ready model from CZ USA. This is the American produced one. It's not the one that's imported from the factory in the Czech Republic. I have fired about 425 rounds through this in one session just a few days ago. And overall impressions are pretty positive. I was shooting at 7, 15, and 25 yards, making very easy, very fast, very precise hits at all distances, of within my skill level, of course. But I found this a remarkably easy handgun to shoot. The trigger was fantastic. Shooting to reset allowed me probably the fastest follow-up shots I've ever been able to make with a stock handgun, which is pretty impressive. It was incredibly easy to make precise, rapid follow-up shots. So let's go over the handgun itself a little bit here. I'll demonstrate that this is safe. There's ammunition in the magazine. These are Hornady critical duty 135 grain plus Ps. 19 round capacity. The P10 comes with 2 magazines, and as you can see at the back here, they have markers for all 19 rounds, plus 1 in the chamber. We'll go ahead and clear the firearm right now. Check the chamber. Chamber is clear. And I'm going to set this magazine aside, since I will be dry firing this. Yeah, we are clear. I'll drop the slide again. Okay. So that's clear. So one of the initial concerns I had right out of the box was the very aggressive texturing on the front and the back. Now, after some dry fire practice, I started noticing that my very initial thought was, when grasping the handgun, that the texturing was actually painful because it is so aggressive. If you look here, you can see, focus, you can see that it is actually pretty aggressive. Side panels less so. However, in practice, after dry firing practice a little bit, and then just like practicing with my grip and everything, and then going out to the range and putting close to 500 rounds through it, not only did I not notice any pain, I didn't even notice any discomfort. It wasn't something that I even noticed. So in practice, my initial fears were completely baseless. I hold this now, get a very firm grip on it. It just feels grippy. There's no discomfort whatsoever with the grip. In fact, it feels fantastic. It feels stuck in my hand, almost. Not stuck, but I feel like I have a very firm grip on it. While actively shooting it, it was very easy to maintain a positive grip. Another thing I liked, and this is not really a necessary thing, but it was a nice thing, they included some texturing here forward of the takedown plate, which didn't really help with a grip, but it did prove a useful tactile reference point for where I generally keep my support hand thumb in the thumbs forward high position while shooting. And I shot with this TLR1 weapon light on there the entire time. Functioned perfectly fine. Did not seem to throw off my aim at all or anything like that. What else? Magazine changes were pretty easy. The slide release was perfectly fine. No problems there whatsoever. One of the features that I did like, and apparently this is an intentional feature, is that, and I confirmed this with some other people who are more familiar with the P10s, that while inserting a loaded magazine, now I'm not sure if it has to be fully loaded, half loaded, or whatever, but because these magazines were so new, my thumbs eventually gave up at one point. I would download them to I would only half load them because my thumbs were dying. But with 12, 13, 14 rounds in them, as long as I inserted the magazine with enough force, the slide would drop automatically and it'd be ready to go. I only used the slide stops and the slide serrations for loading, simply to see how they felt. I never actually needed to touch them when doing mag changes, which was pretty neat. I had one failure of it to do that, because you do still have to use some force, and but that was one failure to do that. A second firm smack on the bottom of the magazine dropped dropped the slide, chain it around just fine. So yeah, inserting it gently or even like semi-hard is not going to drop the magazine, but if you're shooting very quickly and driving the magazines home, that slide will drop, and it makes the reloading process just a little bit faster. But it also means that if you just insert a magazine with the slide locked open, it's not just going to drop. So I think that's a nice balance there. Now, what else? Oh, let's talk about the sights. So as you'll see, there's just a plain black rear notch sight and a orange front sight, which has a tritium tube in it. That is a night sight. I found these in daylight. I was shooting in daylight, of course, to be very quick to pick up on. The lack of the two dots at the rear didn't make any difference whatsoever. In fact, I think I was actually faster just using the single front sight as a reference point. It seems like a pretty good balance between speed and accuracy. I can't speak to mechanical accuracy because I was not shooting from a rest, and I'm limited by my own handgun skills, which are not amazing, but they're okay. And I was drilling out bullseyes at 7, 15, and 25 yards quickly with no problem, even with real crappy ammo. During this entire firing process, I experienced no malfunctions. I ran several different brands through it. They were all brass cased. I'm going to have to try out some steel case. I don't anticipate it'll be a problem because my other CZs have fed steel case just fine, but we'll see what this one is like with steel case. But no malfunctions whatsoever. I did accidentally, it wasn't accidentally. I had to dig my shoe out of the mud when I went downrange to change targets during a ceasefire. Ended up with a really gunky, crappy mud on my finger, and I was just like, it's on my finger, I'm kind of testing this out, why don't I slop it onto the trigger and on parts of the slide. I wasn't really doing any kind of formal testing, but it got all over the trigger and in the trigger guard, kept on firing, and it basically just ran off after a little bit. It didn't affect anything whatsoever. I did not notice, and notice it, and it certainly didn't cause any malfunctions. The rear and front slide serrations are nice and deep. Quite grippy, good purchase, no issues there. After takedown, or after I inspected the internals, and I'll go here and make sure that's clear one more time, because you do have to pull the trigger to disassemble it. It pulls down just like a Glock. Alright, so drop the trigger, retract the slide slightly, and it pops right off. And here we go. Wear points, or rather wear marks where they should be. Just a little bit on the rails here, a little bit on the rails here. that was about it. Cleaning it was pretty easy. You know, it's just cleaning a handgun. There's nothing special to it. Nothing much to remark on there. The finish on the slide is quite nice. I was firing Winchester White Box, which was one of the brands I fired, is typically quite dirty, and I did not notice a whole lot of carbon buildup anywhere. I'm not quite sure why. It usually is quite a bit dirty. Maybe I got lucky. But the finish has so far been holding up very nicely. Now, 425 rounds, it's not a very high round count, obviously. This is just sort of, I'm not going to do any sort of long-term torture test or anything. One of the issues people had with the first gens was they noted, or there was a fear, at least with the very early ones, that the striker could rotate. I can't rotate the striker left or to the right. It'll wiggle slightly. You can see there, it'll just wiggle a little bit, but it won't actually rotate. It didn't do so after live fire. It handled plus P rounds just fine. Not a whole lot to say about the internals. I did check out a gunsmith who ran down all the potential problems that were present in at least some iterations of the first generation P10C, and I thoroughly inspected the gun both before and after firing for those issues he's pointed out. Now, I'm not a gunsmith, so I was relying on him to look at what might be problem areas. I've not seen any problem areas. So it looks like they may have fixed everything that was wonky with the first generation ones. I'll go ahead and show you what I think is the nicest part about this, which is the trigger. I'll put the phone down for 1 second here and reassemble this. I should make note, one thing I have noticed at reassembly is that you really have to make sure that the spring is low. Otherwise the guide rod likes to get locked forward and kind of stuck when you put it back together. There we go. All right. Now, I'll show you the trigger press. Standard trigger safety, of course, it's very Glock-like. One of the things that's not Glock-like is the fact that the trigger extends almost to the bottom of the trigger guard, and the fact that the trigger guard itself is so large. There's also this very nice undercut that's beveled, very nicely shaped, very high beaver tail. I was able to get a very high grip very naturally with it, as you can see there. Super natural to hold it that way. It fits my hands just perfectly. I can't speak for everyone. My hands are different. Like I said, I can't, working with a Glock or something like that, I just cannot deal with Glocks because my hands are just not made that way, I suppose. So back to the trigger though. The pull is very impressive. So here's the take up. There's where you encounter the wall. There's the break. Light and smooth. Factory claims it's about 4.5 pounds. I'd say that's right. There's no creep, there's no grittiness, there's no nothing. Relatively short. And then once you hit that wall, it's basically an instant break. And probably the nicest part, I'll show the reset here. Yep, there's the reset, and no take up whatsoever. Very, very rapid reset. I'm super happy with that. That's what made that very rapid, accurate firing possible. Shooting to reset on this is an absolute breeze. It felt like cheating. So, yeah, it's been, it runs great. I'm confident enough now to have it as my home defense gun, or, well, my secondary home defense gun. And it will soon be my carry gun, as soon as holsters become available for it, or at least more holsters become available for it. That's really all I have to say on the matter. I took a shot in the dark with this, but I think it was a good purchase, and this is, yeah, this is a fantastic shooter. I quite liked it. I spent a long time trying to decide what kind of full-sized striker fire polymer gun to get, because I've never owned one before, and I tried a lot of different ones, and it was a close call between this, the P320, Walther PPQ, HKVP9. I tried a Gen 5 Glock again, and I of course hated it again, but I tried it out, I gave it a fair shot, and I was just like, nope, can't do it. But this ultimately won out. Not to say that those others are bad, they are all actually pretty good. It was a very close race. One final note here. Since this is the optics ready model, it does have the removable plate here. Apparently, I will eventually be getting a Trijicon RMR Type 2 to put in here, and CZ will have, or already has, mounting plates available for the RMRs. I'm very new to pistol optics. I've shot pistol optics before, but I've never actually owned one that accepted pistol optics. So not quite sure how this works. I assume you take this off, screw in the plate there, and then screw the sight onto the plate and affix it. But I'm not entirely sure yet. We'll cross that bridge when it comes to it. Downsides. Because, of course, everything is going to have a downside. These slide releases, they are not stiff, but I wish they protruded more. They're very flat, and that's a bit of a difference for me. They work just fine, but it'd be kind of nice just to have them protrude a bit more outward. They are large enough in the they have a large enough surface area that it's not a problem, but I just wish they protruded out a little bit more, kind of like more a CZ75, which is more what I'm used to. Rather minor nitpick, and they're still a little bit stiff, but nothing too bad. That's about all I have to say about this. I'm quite happy with it. I'm excited to go out and shoot more with it, see how it starts standing up over time with increased round counts. But it has been 100% reliable. And I think I'll switch over to carrying this. So hopefully this was useful, and that I haven't been too rambling. This is my first video, so not quite used to doing this. But have a good one, y'all. Stay safe.